everyone, and welcome to Hammerstone TV. This is episode number 2. Real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to Jacob Stutzman with Sweetwater.com. They're the largest retailer of quality musical instruments and pro audio gear. And Jacob was kind enough to expedite our lavalier mics from Rode practically overnight to get him here for this session today. So thank you to Jacob and the folks at Sweetwater.com. They have a bunch of very highly trained sales engineers ready to help you with your phone calls and your questions about gear. But the most important thing today is our guest for episode number 2, a good friend of mine, an amazing musician, amazing drummer, somebody who I've studied with and seen him play many times, Charles Ruggiero.
Welcome. Welcome, Charles.
Welcome, Charles. Yes.
Nice to see you, man. Great to be here, man. Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming down.
Yes.
I know the circumstances with which people are getting together is a little crazy these days with coronavirus.
We've both been tested, so we're less than 6 feet, but we've both been tested in the last few days, so we're comfortable being close to each other.
Got the brain swab, yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
totally.
Man, that thing burned for like 24 hours after that. I was like,
yeah.
So, tell me, what's going on with you these days? How has coronavirus affected your kind of career up to this point?
Just send it into the toilet.
Yeah.
No, there's one element in my life where it's like nothing's different, and that's the daytime. Like, my day is basically exactly the same as it always was, because I play music for a living. So, like, my days are mine. They're mine to do with what I want. It's the night times that are different. Like, I have never in my life spent this many nights at home. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I go out at night. I'm either gigging or going to see someone else play. I do stay home from time to time, obviously. Like, my wife and I have our shows that we watch and all that. But
right.
So that's really, so like, it's funny because at a certain level, like, I think the majority of the rest of the world now gets to do what I do during the day, which is right. Be home, you know what I mean? And I I have a rehearsal studio where I go and practice, and that's been active, and that's been really good. But I mean, really, the way it's impacted me is that there's no gigs. I do a fair amount of studio work. I do record and do projects and whatnot.
And that's all still on, right? You're still able to do some of that, right?
Yeah,
right.
for sure. But my real bread and butter is live playing. Mm-hmm. And so that has been, like, that's just non-existent. I've had, I think since whatever, March 15th was my last, was when it ended for me personally. Since then, I may have done 6 gigs or 10 gigs, somewhere in that area. I had a bunch of really great shit get canceled this year, which was a really, really serious drag. Some pretty big time shit, got canceled, which I was really upset about.
HAMMERSTONE had its first gig, our first record.
Oh, no shit, really?
Had it set up and ready to go, and it was April, I think 11th or 17th or something in that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's so in that way, that's how I've been impacted. Is that like my job is gone. You know what I mean? For the most part. The art part of it is still there. I still practice pretty regularly. Like, I go in and I've been doing a lot of quarantine videos. Mm-hmm. So Yamaha makes this, you know what I mean? Go to Sweetwater and buy this Yamaha thing. It's called the EAD 10. And you remember, I had it here.
You had it mounted on the bass drum, right?
Yep.
Okay.
It's a module that basically mounts on the bass drum, and it does have a trigger in it, but that's sort of almost a secondary thing. It's basically like, imagine a pickup, like a guitar, in an acoustic guitar, mm-hmm. right? You take an acoustic guitar and you put a pickup in the sound hole, mm-hmm. and then now you can plug it in. It's basically what the EAD is. Like, that's the EAD for dummies, right?
And the sound quality is great because I've heard a couple of your videos.
So high end, yeah.
It's like, you can't tell. It sounds like you've got a couple of really nice microphones, and a good interface. You know, so.
Well, what's cool about it is it runs. It's a stereo mic in this thing, and then they And like I said, there's a trigger because basically it's like, you're putting a mic in the middle of your kit.
Mm-hmm.
But the bass drum is going this way, like the sound is coming towards you and away from you, not kind of this way. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it doesn't quite. I mean, it gets a good bass drum sound, but it doesn't get like as good a sound as everything else. Like the snare drum sound and the toms. I mean, it's perfection.
Those are pointing right at
It's just and they're all like kind of, it's central, So so they put a trigger in and it helps, and then you can like dial in some bass drum sounds to kind of enhance your actual bass drum sound.
Right.
It doesn't change the sound; it just adds. It'll add if you're doing metal, it'll add like a little click. You know what I mean? Or if you want a vintagey sound, it'll so you get your bass drum sound, but then there's this kind of other like stacked sort of sample on top of it, which it makes it cool. It is just great, and so. And then there's an app for it, and then you plug it into the app, and the app has all this great, like, you can do. It's really great for practicing or learning something because you can loop and slow stuff down. You can put in whatever so let's say you want to learn the Oakland stroke, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'll actually assign a click to it if you want. Like like you can load a track into the app, and then it'll analyze it and give you a click. So you can kind of learn, like you can, it'll help you help you get playing with a click. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can, like I said, you can loop stuff and slow stuff down, and you can you can just take sections, and then it'll attach to your phone, so you can video yourself.
Oh, that's great.
You can video yourself so you can see like what you're doing kind of right or wrong, and or like if let's say you get the Oakland stroke happening, right? So you go in and you record yourself playing along with it, then you can actually mix, so you can take the track up and down, and then your drums up and down. It's kind of got
like a
two-track thing, okay. Right? So so you can mix it. You mix it so that you can hear either you want to hear a lot of the track or a little of the track, more drums, less drums.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of make that adjustment, and then from your drum stool, you can just like clip it. You can take it. You can edit. I only want 1 minute and 15 seconds of it, or 3 minutes and 8 seconds of it, or whatever. And then you can just you can email it to a friend, you can text it, you can upload it directly to YouTube.
That's great.
Yeah. So it's a real social media thing too.
Are you using this with some of your sessions when you're doing songs where you do the video songs?
That's what I'm talking about. Those are the quarantine videos.
Gotcha.
Now that's the only thing I've ever used. So if you say you go to my website, RuggieroDrums.com, and you go to, I actually now have an entire page, because now I've done like 10 or 12 of them.
Right.
So I go to you can go to RuggieroDrums.com and go to the EA. There's an EAD videos page, mm-hmm. and everything you see on there. The only thing I've used to record drums is the EAD. It's there, like no huge mic setup, no going into like having to like mix it all in Logic. Now, to be fair, once the stereo 2-track is recorded, right? Mm-hmm. I will then, what I do is I take, it's like I send just the drum, which is, again, it's just a stereo 2-track. Take that, and then I'll load that into Logic, and I will put I will put a little reverb, or, even though the EAD has those things, for that project, I don't use reverb, because I want the reverb to be the same reverb. You know what I mean? I want it to be consistent with the rest of the track.
Right.
Because I'm mixing and mastering and doing all that stuff for those videos.
Okay.
So I do my track, I send it to Tim LaFave, right? Or Dan Lutz, whoever is going to be playing bass, and then they'll play bass, and then we send that to the keyboard player or guitar player, and then we sort of build the track, and everyone plays at home, and they send me the video and their audio, and then I mix the track. Mm-hmm. And then I make a little video out of it. And that's really kept me creative in quarantine, because there's no real playing live.
Right. So
for me I need, if you're a creative person, you have to create. It's not something, you know what I mean? It's, it's like those people that are like, yeah, I'm in a band. And then when there are no gigs, they're not playing. They're like doing some other thing. I'm always like, well, that's kind of weird, right? Like if
you're either doing music or you're not.
Yeah. Like it's not about, I don't do it to it's not a hobby.
Right.
It's like I don't care if I never get another gig again. I'm always going to be at the drum set doing something. Right. I can't not play. I'm actually one of those people. Like if I go 4 days, 3, 4, 5 days, and I haven't hit a drum, I start getting squirrely. My wife is like, "Get out of here.
Go to your
place and hit the drums because you're acting like a jerk." You know what I mean? Like I get antsy. You know what I mean? It really does something. So for me, and again, because there's no gigs to be had, it's just like you've got to make it happen yourself. And because the EAD thing, Yamaha asked me to, promote it, and they've asked me to not in this way, but like they asked me to demo it at NAMM. They asked me to do the Guitar Center demo was me. Mm-hmm. Like when it came out, like they asked me to do the thing for it. So I've been a little bit associated with it. So I had actually started buying a bunch of mics and a like an interface and stuff because I was starting to want to get into doing some of this, and this EAD thing made it so easy. It's like your phone and this one thing,
right?
And I mean, like you said, there's a couple, and I've gotten better. Like if you look at the first couple, like I did one with Oz Noy, mm-hmm. and I did one with Larry Goldings and Tim LaFave and Laura Mace and Matt Hornbeck. You can definitely hear like this. I've gotten way better at it, like the mixing end of it. The first couples sound good, but they don't sound great.
So it's a little blown out there, but
yeah, like the one with Oz Noy is definitely like I could definitely use a little high end. You know what I mean? Right. Like, but I wasn't. It's like I definitely have gotten better at it. It's been a real lifesaver for me. That's really been the thing that I've been concentrating on during this time. It's just having a creative outlet where I still get to play, and I'm learning more about sound engineering, and I'm learning about video editing. So it's been kind of a cool time in a way, what I mean, in a sense.
Yeah, I kind of went through an interesting period when coronavirus started. Like I was saying, Hammerstone's, we're going to start playing shows. We had all these recordings done. We're going to start releasing singles, and for a brief window there, I was like, when they were just like, oh, it's going to be shut down indefinitely. We don't know when it's going to open up. There might not be a vaccine for 2 years. And I'm thinking, fuck.
Yeah.
Like it really made me sit down and ponder why I really did music. Like I knew there was something inside. I've always been a drummer since I was like 4, and I first heard Lido Shuffle by Boss Gags. It was like my mom was like, something about that song would like shut you up. You would just stop and listen to it. Right. And ever since then, I've been just in love with playing drums. And I've kind of branched out to doing other things.
Right, because you play guitar and you're well versed in like audio engineering, like all that discipline. Like quite a lot about that stuff.
Yeah, and so I have I like during that first couple of weeks after the shutdown, when I was really thinking like, wow, we might not play a gig. There might not be the ability to play a gig for a couple of years, maybe.
Right.
I had to kind of reassess. Like at first I was like, well, shit, I guess that's it. Yeah. And for a couple of weeks I didn't come down to the studio. I didn't really want to create anything. And then it got to that point where I was like, I need to go hit my fucking drums, dude, because this is starting to become a condition, And it was at that point that I realized, no matter what, I'm going to do this. I think the goal has changed from, I want to write the next greatest rock tune or put out the next greatest video or play a huge show in front of thousands of people to, I just want to continue to create.
Yeah. And I actually think that is, that's a sort of an age-old discussion that musicians have had and people have had. And I remember one time this friend of mine called me, and I had just come off Ozfest. I was playing with this band with a bunch of really well-known musicians, and this friend of mine called me, and he was about to sort of kind of, I had replaced Matt Sorum in this band. So this guy was about to replace a well-known singer in a band of other well-known guys. So he called me and said, "Hey, how am I?" Now he was going to be maybe the lead singer of this band, which is quite a bit different. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the principle is the same. And he's like, "Man, how did you deal with that? Like, what did you do?" And I'm afraid that if and he was saying that basically like he had worked really hard to get his life together, mm-hmm. and this band was like a premier band in the world, and he was like, if I get this gig, what's going to happen to me? How am I going to face that? And so that's like the background of the question, right? So he called me and said, like, what do I do? Like if I don't do this, what's going to become of me? Mm-hmm. And I said, it depends. Do you do this because you want to be a rock star? Like, is that your goal? Is to like make millions and have chicks and be a star?
The celebrity of
like,
it.
Is that what you're aiming for? Or do you sing because you can't not sing? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, I said, then my guess is that you're in it for the celebrity.
Right.
I said, because if you're really that good that you're being considered to replace this guy like in this band, like you've got to be good to be able to be even in the running for this thing. Right. So like you're obviously good. You're obviously good. So what are you? Because are you going to trade? And it became this thing about like, are you going to trade that? Are you going to trade everything you've built your life to be for these couple years that you might be a star?
Right.
You know what I mean? Are you going to trade it all in, or are you gonna like just sing because you love to sing, and it doesn't need to be in front of 10 million people. It can be in front of 100 people. I think a lot of people have had to reckon with that. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have had to reckon with, like, what do I do this for? Because if you can go 6 months without touching your instrument, unless you're having some kind of, like, crisis, because that has happened to me at one point. Like,
you're hiking the Andes or something.
Yeah, if you're doing something where you are, unless you're in some kind of major discovery mode in your life, because I went through a period of about 1.5 years after my mother passed away. I stopped playing for a couple of years. Wow. And I decided that whiskey was more important than anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was a time when I didn't play for a while. It was good. It ended up being really good for me. It really inspired me in a different kind of way. When I came back, I was refreshed. Barring something like that, barring some major life thing where you're really changing as a human, mm-hmm. I think if you're successfully able to take that much time off, I'm not sure that you can really. And I mean, who the fuck knows what I'm saying? It's probably bullshit too, but like. Can you really call yourself a musician at that point?
Right.
And I mean, the answer ultimately is yes, you fucking can. Like, well, who the fuck am I to say?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there is an element there that, like, if you don't need it, and I guess I feel that way because I do. I need it, and that makes me feel connected to it. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. No, I'm totally on the same wavelength with you on that, man. Like, I think the longest period I went without touching my drums was maybe a month, and that was back in the early 2000s when I decided on a whim at 32 to go play semi-pro football here in LA. Because football was kind of like, I was at that point, I was either a drummer or a football player, and I love both kind of equally.
I did not know that about you.
Yeah.
That's funny. I've known you for a long time. I never knew that.
2002, I just... I found that there was a semi-pro football league down here in Southern California.
Okay.
I had been out of college for about 10 years, and I played in college, played at UC Berkeley.
What position?
I was a punter and a place kicker.
Okay.
Although in college, when I was playing for the Cal Bears, I ended up playing scout team, outside linebacker, and fullback.
Okay. Because you're kind of built that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I was like 210 pounds back then. I'm like 180 now, right? At 5'8". So the coach was like, "You got that low center of gravity there."
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You're kind of built that way. I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
but I just, I felt like at that point in my life, like, okay, I'm not getting any younger. If I'm going to do this, I got a couple of good years.
Right.
So and at the time I was in a band that had like a single on one of the Guitar Hero video games, and so there was like shit happening there. So it was kind of a real push and pull thing. But I'm like, I can always come back to music. I can't come back to football.
Right, because you can age out.
You can age out of that.
Right.
So I went down that road for a while, but I mean, even in the height of football seasons, I still managed to come down here and hit the drums a couple times a week because I just had to.
But that's still like you are. I mean, it's a different conversation, but like you're sort of trading in one passion for another.
Right.
You're still like there's still like something that's grabbing your like really sort of undivided attention. Mm-hmm. And I think when people talk about passions, that's really what you're talking about is bordering on obsessive. You know what I mean? Where you're like, like I'm really passionate about it. It's like all I think about. You know what I mean?
Well, and to reach a certain level. At anything you do, whether it's drumming, guitar playing, fucking rock climbing, flying a plane, you've got to put in a certain amount of time to really lock in that muscle memory and that knowledge and that kind of like intrinsic just know-how and so that what comes out is natural.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I was going to ask you too. Was like I noticed on one of your masterclass videos. You talk a little bit about kind of like a natural flow to certain phrasings and stuff like that, like music, making things more musical.
Yeah.
Do you who influenced you in that way, and how do you get your students to kind of understand that same concept of like it's not just like 1, 2, 3, 4 with the click perfectly. How do you speak musically? Because the way we're talking now, we've got a lot of exercise in talking.
You just literally took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what it is, and that's how I explain it to people. Music is a language. Music is just language is a form of communication, right? So music is a form of communication. It's a different way to communicate. Like sign language is a it's verbal without being sonic, right? So you look at music in that way, and especially particularly with improvisation and with feeling, right? And I talk about this in my brand new masterclass. I have a new My Music masterclass. I have 3 masterclasses out on that platform. It's run by a couple great guys. There's a ton of really great musicians, and
we'll have the links to all that down in the description. So make sure to check that out.
Yeah, mymusicmasterclass.com. So I have a new one. I have a new one out on improving your feel. There's so much that has to do when people talk about like phrasing and feel, and it's like I think those terms are so often misunderstood because not all musicians are really great at the talking. You know what I mean? Right. You might be a great player. It's like Jordan is a great player, but may not be a great teacher or great coach, right?
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching part 1 of my interview with Charles Ruggiero. Part 2 is coming right up. We're going to dive deeper into what makes Charles the musician that he is today. So stick around.